The Hebrew word Elohim represents the supreme God, the creator of the universe. It is translated with a capital G God over 2,000 times in the Bible, but it's also rendered little g gods or false deities and angels 250 times. So Elohim is sometimes used to represent all forms of divine or supernatural beings. For instance, Deuteronomy 10:17 says, "For I am the Lord your God, the God of gods and the Lord of lords." It's written, Jehovah Elohim is the God of gods, the Elohim of Elohim. Written with different forms of that word, he is saying he is the capital G God, or the supreme Elohim, and I am over the little g gods and the Lord of the smaller lords. It's important that you remember this later on. The workbook of the Old Testament tells us that Elohim occurs only in Hebrew and in no other Semitic language. So he is truly the supreme God of Israel. And the original text of Genesis 1:1 reads, "In the beginning, before time or matter existed, it was Elohim, the supreme God, who created the Aleph and the Tav, the basic elements, all the prima materia needed to completely create the heavens and the earth." In fact, it is used 31 times in the first chapter of Genesis to focus our attention on Elohim, the true designer and creator of everything that exists. Then Genesis 2:1 in the original Hebrew reads, "Thus were finished or completed all the heavens and the earth and all the host of them," the Saba'am, the mass of persons or other beings assembled and organized for war or some other type of campaign. The host of heaven refers to the angels, God's special messengers, as well as the cherubim and the seraphim, guardians of the glory, and to every other species of divine being that operates in the heavenly realms. And the host on earth must refer to every living soul that was created to multiply and replenish our planet, both animal and human, and it could also represent the divine angelic beings who were or would be stationed to watch over and govern the various territories and tribes on planet Earth. And Deuteronomy 32 describes this moment in time when it says, "Remember the days of old, Olam," which represents some time in the distant past. Verse 8, "When the Most High, the supreme or highest God, divided the nations, the goyim nations," the Hebrew says, the non-Hebrew tribes, when he separated the sons of Adam, Ben Adam, and he set the bounds of the people, the Gebulah, he set the borders and the geographical boundaries of the various tribes to inhabit. And he did this according to the number of the children of Israel, the Ben Yisrael. Now, most commentators believe that this refers back to Genesis chapter 10 in the Table of Nations, where there are 70 generations or descendants of Noah listed. In fact, the last verse of Genesis 10 tells us, "By these generations were the goyim nations later divided in the earth after the time of the flood." However, there are other translations of Deuteronomy 32 that say something a little different. The ESV translation says, "When he divided mankind, he fixed the borders of the people according to the number of the sons of God." Well, we know that represents angels in the Old Testament. The ERV says, "He made as many nations as there were angels." Whoa. The GNT says, "He assigned to every nation a heavenly being." And the New American Bible says, "When the Most High allotted each nation its heritage, when he separated out the human beings, he set up the boundaries of the people after the number of the divine beings." Angels. Well, why is this disparity existing? Where does it come from? The Septuagint Bible, which is the Greek translation of the original Hebrew text written 2 or 3 centuries before the time of Christ, during the Second Temple period, so it represents the rabbis' mindset at that time, how they interpreted these scriptures I'm reading to you now. And instead of saying, according to the number of the children of Israel, that the Masoretic text says, instead it says in Greek that the Lord divided the goyim nations and appointed their boundaries according to the arithmos, angelos, theos, according to the number of the angels of God. Whoa, according to the host of heaven? Well, I believe these hosts of heaven were assigned by God to watch over various tribes and territories of the goyim nations. They were the watchers, divine beings posted on duty over earth with governmental authority to carry out God's will among mankind. And the next verse, Deuteronomy 32:9 says, "For the Lord's portion is his people, Jacob." Yod-Heh-Vav-Heh, Jehovah chose to be the Elohim who would watch over and take the responsibility over the Hebrew people, the seed of Abraham. In fact, Exodus 3:6 says, "I am the Elohim, God of Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob." And it's through their seed we know that the Messiah came, the Lord Jesus Christ, who paid the price to redeem fallen man out from under the curse and the rebellion that's going on in the world through his shed blood, his death, and his resurrection. That was God's plan, set from the beginning, the foundation of the world. So Jehovah, Elohim, watching over the seed of Abraham, and the lesser divine beings were assigned to watch over the goyim nations, so that each nation was assigned a patron or guardian angel, a little g God, to oversee their affairs. But there was a problem, because over time all the nations continued to rebel against the Most High God, just like they did at the Tower of Babel. And even some of the divine beings decided to become fallen angels. And they continued their rebellion, not in the heavenly realm, but on planet Earth among the people. Like Genesis 6 tells us, when the sons of God, the fallen angels, mixed their seed with the DNA of humans, they produced the Nephilim, giants that were half angel and half human, forming a hybrid race of unredeemable beings. Not only in the time of Noah, but Genesis 6:4 tells us after that time, another group of fallen angels once again mixed with the daughters of Ha-Adam, and they begat the Ha-Gibborim, another group of giants, mighty men, which were of old, Me-Olam. They came out of eternity from some place beyond our space-time world. Now, we don't know with any certainty how many invasions have taken place. But Psalms 82 describes to us how Elohim dealt with the little g gods and the fallen angels. Psalms 82:1. God stands in the congregation of the mighty and judges among the gods. The God judging over the little g gods. God is translated from the Hebrew Elohim. The Elohim is judging among the little g gods, which is also translated from the word Elohim. So the Elohim, the supreme creator, is acting like a judge or a governor over the lesser Elohim, the little g gods, the divine or spiritual beings that were created by Elohim. And what did he say to them? Let's read the next verses from various translations. How long will you, Elohim, magistrates and judges, continue to judge unjustly by showing partiality to the wicked? The watcher angels began to turn their back on their creator and instead show deference to the panim rasa, the presence of wickedness and ungodly acts that were happening on earth. The theological workbook says Rasha denotes the kind of life that is in direct opposition to the character of God. So it's ungodliness. Verse 5. And so the gods don't know or understand because they're wandering about in darkness. And all the world's foundations are shaken. All the foundations of the earth are out of course, God said. The TLB says it this way, but you are so foolish and so ignorant, you Elohim gods, because you are living in darkness and not light. And now all the foundations of society are being shaken to their core. In fact, the prophet Isaiah saw it in Isaiah chapter 24, where he said, "The earth has been defiled under the inhabitants thereof, both human and angelic, because they rebelled against the righteousness of Elohim, and the curse has now devoured the earth." So then the Creator in the book of Psalms spoke directly to the divine beings that were governing the earth in verse 6. And he said, "I have said that you are Elohim, little g gods, and all of you are children of the Most High, designed to be eternal sons of God." Verse 7, "But like men, like Adam, you're going to die now. You're going to die physically, like one of the princes that fall. Even though you are spiritual beings, sons of God, designed to live for eternity, because of your rebellion, you will now die like men when you fall to the ground." The Hebrew naphal is where we derive our word Nephalim, the fallen ones, the seed of the fallen angels. He said, when you fall, you will die a physical death like ordinary human princes. And then verse 8 wraps it up. "So arise, O God, the true Elohim, the supreme God of the universe, because you are the true judge of the earth. And you will once again inherit," or the literal Hebrew, nakal, "you will once again take possession of the goyim nations on planet Earth." And I believe that you and I are now living in those days when that's beginning to happen. God is taking back control of the heavenly realms, and we got to get ready for the change of nations. Why? Because Jehovah Elohim is the one and only true God, and he is greater than all the other lesser little g gods. Now, most of the world's ancient civilizations have similar stories to what the Bible says. How divine beings came down from the sky and gave them advanced technology and knowledge about the cosmos. And many of them would mate or alter the DNA of human beings, producing hybrid beings, part human, part angel, who dominated and ruled over a time in their territory. Like the Anunnaki, one of the earliest invaders of our planet, who came from another place outside our solar system, as the mythology goes. And they settled around the Tigris and Euphrates river valleys, where it's written in the Sumerian tablets. They imparted a higher level of knowledge and set about to improve and alter the DNA of human beings. Or the Mayans and the Aztecs in the Americas, who wrote about Quetzalcoatl, a feathered serpent deity often depicted as a flying dragon, who came down from the heavens and was considered to be the creator god. He invented the calendar, and he taught the people how to map the stars and the technology of how to build huge pyramid monuments where they would offer up human sacrifices. Or the Romans or the Greeks or the Egyptians all had stories about the gods descending to earth and ruling over human affairs. Even the Greek philosopher Plato spoke about it in his writings when he described the lost city of Atlantis. I'm quoting exactly from the words. "The tale, which was of great length, began as follows," Plato wrote. "I have before remarked in speaking of the allotments of the gods that they distributed over the whole earth their portions, differing in extent and sacrifices. And how one, Poseidon, receiving for his lot the island of Atlantis, begat children by a mortal woman and settled them in part of the island, which I will now proceed to describe." And he goes on to tell about the 5 pairs of male twins that Poseidon fathered, who ruled over Atlantis. So Deuteronomy 32 and many other Bible verses in the Old Testament help us understand what is really going on in the heavenly realms. This is where the Apostle Paul based his revelation on his pantheon of heavenly beings warring in the heavenly realm over planet Earth. He wrote about them in the books of Ephesians and Colossians. Ephesians 6:12 says, "For we wrestle not against flesh and blood." Our fight is not in the physical world, it's in the spiritual realm, against principalities and powers. The Greek arche and exousia, which the theological workbook tells us the word arche represents primacy in time, place, and rank. So Paul's not talking about territory as much as he is the first original heavenly rulers or lords. and the exousia, the divine beings who have the authority and the jurisdiction to govern the affairs of life, just like it says in Deuteronomy. Arche was used in early Judaism and Christianity to represent supernatural beings such as angels or evil spirits that outranked other lesser divine beings, much like a military structure. Then Paul continues with the third class. We are against the rulers of the darkness of this world, the Greek kosmokratoros, the rulers of the cosmos in the realms of darkness throughout the universe. And number 4, he wrote about the evil and wicked spirits in high places. The Greek, they operate in epiranios, in the heavenly realm that exists epi, just above and outside our physical realm where we live. And Paul went on to write in Colossians chapter 1 that the Father has delivered us out from under this power of darkness where the fallen deities are operating. The Greek exousia means that we've been delivered and set free from the authority and the control of these wicked spirits of darkness, and that he has translated us into the kingdom of his dear Son, Jesus Christ. Philip's translation goes on to say, because Christ is the visible expression of the invisible God. And he existed before creation, before the angels, before the divine beings, before the little g gods were put in their position over earth. Christ was there. For it was through Christ that everything was made, whether spiritual or material, in the physical realm or in the spiritual realm, seen or unseen, things we can see or things that are invisible to our eyes, unless the Lord opens them. It is through Christ, for him, whether there are thrones or dominions or principalities or powers, arche or exousia, thrones of angels or the dominion of wicked spirits, we have been delivered through the blood of Christ out of the control of all of these wicked things. Why? Because Elohim is the supreme God, and he is greater than all the other little g gods. He's greater than all the fallen angels and every evil spirit and every spirit being that's trying to control your life. And his Son shed his blood so that you could be free and delivered out of the kingdom of darkness and translated into the jurisdiction of the kingdom of Jesus Christ. What are you going to do about it? Those that believe on Jesus, to them he gives the power to become the sons of God. We are the new sons of God, and it's time that you take your rightful position of authority in your world.